Alright, welcome to topic 4-2. They've been real nice and made two quick short videos expressing the ideas, and both did a pretty nice job. But if you had questions on either of those, make sure that you bring those questions to class. Before you watch this video, make sure you go back and do the try-its for both of those so that you can completely understand what we're going to be doing here in this video. So the question for example 3 is utilizing the concepts learned in example 1 and example 2 using the different kinds of properties. One, the distributive property was talked about a lot. The other one is they called it the commutative. I've always called it the commutative. I just like the sound of that better. So if that's what I say, that's what I'm talking about, the commutative or commutative property. And we're going to add in one more property today. In this example, we're going to look at what's known as the additive inverse. All right, and they've actually used that a little bit already in their examples, but we'll talk about that some more as we continue on with this. Alright, so which of the expressions below are equivalent? And so we see three expressions here, and we want to understand which ones are equivalent. So to understand this, we kind of want to break this down, our initial equation, into terms. And so understanding, do we see the same kinds of terms? So our first term that we see is negative 2/3 x, right? Kind of like putting parentheses around that and saying, okay, that's one of our terms. And then as you start looking across the problems down below, we want to say, do we see that term showing up? All right, so this one we see a negative 2/3 x. That appears, okay. Here we have a 2/3 x with a subtraction sign in front of it. And then we have a negative x multiplying by this expression, and then this. There's a lot going on there. All right. Okay, so that's one term we're going to look for. The other term we're going to look for is a negative 2, and we put parentheses around it like that. Now, here is where what's known as the additive inverse comes in. Sometimes this is also called algebraic addition. You separate the terms in parentheses, as I've done already, and then you just put a plus sign there. And throughout the examples, they actually were doing this. That's what allowed them to use the commutative property of addition to rearrange things. Remember when they took like that negative 300 and they moved it from the front to the back? That's what allowed them to do it, by doing what's known as algebraic addition, which is what you're seeing up here. So we're looking for this term then, right? Parentheses negative 2. So we're definitely seeing it here, right? And if you're looking here, this looks almost exactly like this. So, whoops, I'm writing now. I gotta get my cursor back out. That's not gonna do it either. We'll look at it in just a minute. All right. So this one right here is definitely going to be equivalent, because that's exactly what I have here. Here we look at this expression. The second expression, is this one going to be equivalent? We can do the same idea, right? We can say, okay, we got a 2, and then we have a negative 2/3 x, right? Like that. And so here's where our difference comes, right? Here we need a negative 2. Here's only a positive 2. And then the last one, of course, is going to be, okay, we've got to take this negative x and multiply by 1/3 x. And so if I have x times x, right? X times x is always going to be an x squared, right? And then I can just put that 1/3 back in there, because that's what happens. So in the end, this one is definitely not going to be equivalent. And this one also is not equivalent because it had a positive 2 instead of a negative 2. Alright, now that I got rid of my scratch work, we're going to... What? Oh, plus. I read it wrong. I apologize, people. I apologize. Bad teacher. Bad teaching moment. It is equivalent. It's plus. Combine like terms. That would be negative x plus 1/3 x is going to give you 2/3. It's right. I'm sorry. It's equivalent. Let's see why. Okay. All right, so this is what I read, Ron. I did not read this plus sign correctly. I read that just as multiplication. That's why I said x times x is going to be x squared. That's why I said no. So I read it wrong. And maybe you, as you were watching, were like, wait, what about that plus sign there? Right? So I guess I did that on purpose, so you guys were paying attention, right? I never make mistakes. Okay, I made a mistake. That's what happened, right? But because there's a plus sign, you see here that they're combining that, right, using the distributive property to take the negative x plus a 1/3 x. So x stays the same, so 1/3 plus a negative 1 is going to give you negative 2/3, which makes this correct. So they are using the associative property there, which allows you to combine and rearrange. And additive inverse here, that's where we're putting the parentheses like that and using addition. And the commutative property was tried to be used here to rearrange to see it a little clearly, but ended up not working out. Okay, with all that confusion and all that saying, here's the key idea, right? As we get into different kinds of expressions, there's different ways to make them equivalent using different properties. And this is going to become extremely useful when working with different concepts in algebra, especially as we head into the next lessons. So, if you're confused, if you're lost, if you're like, you have no idea what's going on, then just wiggle that hand up into the air in class tomorrow, and we will go through examples and we can clarify anything that may be unknown. All right, that's it for topic 4-2.